one question here, which goes, Dear Ajahn, I have come to realize the unsatisfactoriness of conditions through multiple life experiences. However, I was seeking satisfaction in alternative conditions until I learned about the unconditioned empty state from you, Ajahn Sumedho, and Ajahn Wiradhammo. Since then, I have witnessed the satisfactoriness of the unconditioned empty state in my practice. I noticed the unwavering peace in this state. Even my thinking mind is agitated. Even though my thinking mind is agitated. Now I can perceive the peace in the unconditioned, both in my meditation and sometimes in daily life. Does this make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Keep going, keep doing it. We use perceptions all the time in our practice. As you know, perception is one of the khandhas. So the Buddha pointed out, well, these 5 khandhas are impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self. But while we're alive and while we're practicing and learning the Dhamma, then we use the khandhas to our advantage, even though they are a source of suffering when you attach to them. You know, the khandhas are the opposite of the unconditioned nibbana. Khandhas are born, they die, they bring us problems and suffering in our thoughts, our feelings, perceptions, and the body. But nevertheless, we have to use them. We use this body, we use this mind to further and advance ourselves in the practice of the Dhamma, to understand the Dhamma. So we can use perception, say the perception of the unconditioned or the empty mind. So you can, in terms of a meditation object, you can even develop it. It's called upasamanusati. You're recollecting the peace, the emptiness of Nibbana. And some people will use that regularly, go to that. Other people will use other techniques to train their mind in mindfulness and then reflect and come to witness or get to know the empty mind. But whether you're actually focusing on the empty mind as an object in your meditation, or you're just cultivating different aspects of the path and then becoming aware of emptiness, it's a perception to keep returning to. You know, as Ajahn Chah used to say, you know, if you're sitting in a room, like you're sitting in a room somewhere where you are now, whether you're at home or you're here in a hall, notice how your eyes and your mind will just focus on all the things filling that room, the furniture, the different bits and pieces, the people that fill the space of that room. That's what your mind and your eyes will tend to focus on, isn't it? But you don't really notice the space. And it's the same inside in our mind. You know, you constantly caught up in the details of every thought, good or bad, pleasant, unpleasant, and you're constantly thinking, one mood to another until you've thought so much. At the end of the day, you're tired and you have to go to sleep. Or if you're in your meditation, you've thought so much and you just fall asleep in your meditation. But it's always one thought after another, isn't it? The space between the thoughts, the emptiness of the mind, we miss. But as you practice more mindfulness and you turn your attention inwards, become more reflective, you may notice more the space of the mind, the spaciousness of the mind, and the experience of emptiness. And certainly if you develop some samadhi, you know, your mind might dwell in emptiness for a while. It may not yet be the full emptiness of Nibbana, the unconditioned, but it's like a glimpse, it's close to it. And it will help you understand what you're aiming for and what the experience of the unconditioned is. So get used to that perception, because it's countering our natural habit of always seeking to fill up the void, is it? You know, when we're, especially when you were young, like when I was young, I was always saying, oh, if I've got nothing to do, life is boring. You're always seeking to fill up the void. You got to talk to someone, go somewhere, do something. Really, that's the mind of craving, isn't it? It's always looking for the next object. And even if you're meditating, you're already quite still, quite quiet. Your mind is still looking for the next object to think about, isn't it? So you have to familiarize yourself, get used to the emptiness of the mind, because that's there all the time. And in the beginning, you bring it out as a perception, and you're using that ability of the mind to perceive, to remember. So you're remembering emptiness and perceiving it until it becomes more and more familiar. And that's still you might say, a conditioning factor of the mind. It affects the mind, but your mind will incline more and more to emptiness because of it, until one day, hopefully, you'll reach the unconditioned permanently. So keep going.
Sadhu Lingpo. We have a few more questions in the chat box. Everyone is also welcome to ask your question live if you'd like to. You can raise your digital hand and we'll ask you to unmute. So our next question goes, Dear Ajahn, I'm still a very foolish person and desire and attachment to loved ones is very strong. Even though I know it can be suffering, I still feel very intoxicated by romantic love. How can I reduce my foolishness?
How can I, what was the last bit?
How can I reduce my foolishness?
Oh, reflect on impermanence is one good way. It's not the only way, but the impermanent nature of relationships. Romance fills the mind, but then it passes, doesn't it? It doesn't last. It comes and it goes. Sometimes it disappears altogether, doesn't it? And then your relationship's in trouble. But the Dhamma never lets you down. So form not a romantic relationship, but a relationship with the Dhamma, the truth, and you know, developing the qualities of the Dhamma, the path, right view, and sila, samadhi, panya. It won't let you down. And then it will help you to look at your relationships and your family ties from a place of wisdom and understanding, rather than just, you know, blindly attaching and then reacting to everything. We live with our families to start with in life, and then maybe we go off and form our own family, so have relationships, and maybe have children as well. Every relationship, you know, it's another string or thread of consciousness between two people. They're all like threads. So if you have a number of people in your life, you know, family members, parents, partner, children, it's like all these different strings tugging on your heart. And even love and romance is a tug, causes you pain, doesn't it? You know, that's why we write so many songs and novels and movies and stuff about it, because it's so painful to love someone without mindfulness and wisdom. So you have to gradually educate yourself to love with the Dhamma, you know, love with metta, but also upekkha, you know, detached love, if there is such a thing. You know, just trying to describe it, where you wish that person well. But if you really wish someone well, what do you wish for them? You don't wish for them just to be stuck on you or you stuck on them, because then you're going to suffer when they die or move on. They're going to suffer, you're going to suffer. You're wishing them well, and you wish them nibbana, wish them to reach that state beyond attachment. Of course, that's just an ideal in the beginning, but it's giving you the flavor of how to develop skillful relations in the family. So reflect on impermanence. Your parents will die, your partner will die one day, you will die. Even you have children, they're going to die. Hopefully they die after you, but everyone has to die. don't hide that truth. You don't have to, talk about it all the time, because that'd probably be depressing, wouldn't it? But just be reflective. Oh, one day we won't be together. One day things are going to change. This won't last forever. So you're ready for it, so you can accept it. And you're gradually educating your heart, your mind with that truth. And it very is, romance and then family love is very much a heart thing. You begin by developing the intellectual understanding by listening to the Dhamma, and you say, oh yeah, everything is impermanent. My family ties, eventually I'm going to have to separate from them, or they'll separate from me. We'll leave each other even before we die. We move around, we move apart sometimes. But one day we've got to separate through death. Get the intellectual understanding right, and then start training your heart. And for that, you need mindfulness, you need samadhi, because that will help balance your emotions as you face some of the ups and downs of this relationship. And eventually when you separate, it will help you to cope with it, so it's not overwhelming. That's the value of Dhamma. It really goes in deep into your heart. But it has to go beyond just the intellectual understanding. It has to be one that you're knowing internally as well, with your heart, with your citta.
Sadhu. Next question. I feel very demotivated in my practice and don't find the drive to continue practicing. Please kindly advise me, Ajahn. Thank you so much.
Well, if you've practiced previously and now you've sort of run out of steam, maybe you have to go back and remember those things that inspired you to begin with. The teachings, the situations, go back, bring them up again. So meet with teachers. If you've met with Dhamma teachers who've previously inspired you in your practice, go back and meet them again. And that's the value of having teachers. Teachers are not there just for you to cling on or expect them to practice for you. It's more, they just help remind you of things because we forget or we get distracted. So visit teachers who you find inspiring. Contemplate the impermanence of life. Your time is running out. So if you're sort of stagnating, not going anywhere, try and arouse a bit of urgency. Or this opportunity to practice the Dhamma will slip by. And if I don't take it now, then I'll lose it. So seek out teachers. In person is best, but online or in books is second best. Remind yourself why you practice. Contemplate the impermanence of life. It's like sometimes we need a bit of a kick up the backside. So what will do that for you? For some people, it happens naturally, and they have a bit of a crisis, or something comes along that really reminds them why they practice the Dhamma. They get ill, or they have a relationship problem, or they lose their job, or have a car accident or something. Sometimes it's an external situation prompts it, but not always. Sometimes you have to do it for yourself, don't you? You have to go back and just really think about it. What is the purpose of life? Why did I practice before? Why did I stop? What purpose is there to me stopping this practice? If I was doing it before and I saw it was good, why don't I see it good now? And you go back and you try and investigate that and re-establish some faith and urgency in the practice. So listen to the Dhamma. Listen to the Dhamma often. Make yourself listen to it. If you've got bored with the Dhamma and you turned away from it, sometimes you have to be a bit tough on yourself. Is it make yourself read a Dhamma book, or listen to a Dhamma talk, or go to a retreat, or go and visit a teacher. You make yourself until you don't need to make yourself anymore, because you'll want to do it. But in the beginning, you have to force yourself sometimes. If you've done it before, you can do it again. You just have to find that motivation again that you've had before.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. Luang Por, I think of my duty and responsibilities even when I meditate in the morning. It is very hard to stop thinking about them. As a result, I can't progress in my meditation. What can I do? Also, how do I overcome conceit that arises for a job well done?
Well, it's natural when you meditate that the details, the stuff of your life will come up. If you're meditating in the morning and you've got a day of work ahead of you, then maybe it's quite natural. Your mind will start dwelling on what's going to happen, what are you going to do, all the tasks and the things you have to achieve. But that's the challenge, isn't it? Bring up that reflection on impermanence. At this moment, you're not facing those tasks, those challenges. You're not yet at work for the day. Enjoy the moment where we can have a rest from those challenges. So remind yourself of that. Now I can just let go, enjoy the peace of the morning, breathing in, breathing out. It sounds very cliched, but actually you can do this. Just appreciate the peaceful time you have before you go to work, and really incline your mind towards that, seeing the value in that. Of course, those thoughts will come up. So just remind yourself it's not time to think about that yet. I can think about that later. I'll face that later. For the moment, I'm just going to enjoy the breath and letting go. And sometimes it'll be harder, sometimes easier. So be patient with that. Accept that your mind will keep going back to the work, but reflect like we've been talking tonight. One day you won't be doing that job, however important your work seems to you and the tasks you have to do. One day you won't be doing them. One day you'll retire. One day you'll move on to something else. One day you'll be old. One day you'll be close to death. You're not going to be doing this forever. So bring up that reflection. If it's bothering you, say, oh, I can afford to set this aside for a little while and give myself some really good time with the breath and letting go. Maybe you have to focus on something that holds your attention better. If your meditation object, you can't stick with it because you keep thinking about work or activities you've got coming up. Maybe you have to be creative sometimes. You say, bring up the thought of metta. You say, well, I'm going to go to work today and I can't stop thinking about it, but at least those people I meet, I'm going to try and introduce goodwill, compassion to the conversation or the activities I do involved with other people. If I go to work by car, I'm going to try to practice kindness with other people on the road, forgiveness for those who don't drive well. Try and use your imagination in a skillful way to use up some of that energy where you're just endlessly thinking about work. Try and introduce the Dhamma into that thinking. Maybe do that deliberately for a little period of time as part of your meditation. If you really can't stop thinking about what's ahead and what you're going to do, deliberately think about it, but introduce the Dhamma. So you're cultivating maybe the thought of kindness and compassion. If you're thinking about a job of work you have to do, well, just deliberately think about it for a little while. What have I got to do? How am I going to achieve this? Successfully finish that job? Then you can tell yourself, I've thought about this. Now I can let it go and move on to my move back to my meditation. So occasionally you can even deliberately think about stuff that is bothering you. And you say, okay, I'm going to think about this because I can't stop thinking about it. So I'll think about it with mindfulness. And you make your whole mind focus on that. And maybe quite quickly it will fade away. It's like when you tell your mind, stop thinking about something, often that's what it will think about. But if you say, okay, you can think about it now, you want to think about this, then just think about it. And the mind sort of, oh, I don't really need to think about it. You watch your mind, it's just so tricky. Sometimes you just deliberately think about something that you're trying to let go of, and that's enough to help you let go, because it's like Oh, okay. What next? So you have to be a bit creative. And of course, your aim is to be mindful of the breath, whatever your object is. But if that's not working, sometimes you introduce a few different reflections or look at it from a different angle or work with the particular hindrance that is coming up. And try and enjoy it. Take it as a challenge. Oh, my mind is not settling down. I'm thinking about all this stuff. Okay, how can I introduce the Dhamma into this mental conversation I'm having? And take that as the challenge. You can't expect your mind to always be totally free from thoughts and peaceful and, doing what you want. There'll be plenty of times when your mind is not doing what you want. So that's where you have to be creative, be patient, and keep working at it. And there was a second part of this question, wasn't it? What was
Yes. How do I overcome conceit that arises for good work done?
Well, if it's conceit over good work done, reflect on impermanence again. That job, however good it is, it's finished. You're moving on. If other people praise you, that's good, but it's impermanent. And they praise you today, maybe tomorrow they'll ignore you. You don't get praise all the time. So reflect on the impermanence of that. Reflect on your own inner praise and your own inner attachment to the feelings of satisfaction. Oh, I did this, I achieved that. So they come up, okay, but then just reflect, they're impermanent. You don't feel like that all the time, do you? You are moving into doing other things, and there may be more obstacles and challenges ahead. There may be more failures ahead. So be ready for that. So, you can enjoy a bit of success and doing things well, but don't dwell on it. Don't get stuck there. Just know, oh, that worked. Maybe reflect, why did it work? Where did your success come from? What did you do right in that situation, so that you can learn a bit from it, but then move on, drop it and move on. Don't just walk around with your head stuck in the clouds, because it will bring you down. It will be a cause for suffering, because sooner or later someone will criticize you, or you'll make a mistake, or things won't go as well as they did before, and you'll feel disappointed. So don't get stuck on the successes. Acknowledge them, but let them go. And in the same way, if you meet with failure or problems, you acknowledge them, but you also let them go. So the key thing is to learning to be mindful and letting go of both success and failure, or the conceit of success and the conceit of failure. See it as impermanent, as not self. It's not really who you are. These are conditions that come up. They have their causes, they have their factors that have led them to a come up, and then they change. See that part of it as well, and then you won't suffer so much.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, thank you for the talk tonight. I wonder, how should we talk to old, sick relatives when they don't really understand Dhamma, and it's not easy for them to accept their suffering?
Well, I would say they probably do understand some Dhamma. It's just they may not be Buddhist or know Buddhist terminology, but I'm sure they'll understand some Dhamma, and maybe you have to find out where you can relate to them. So if you start from a place of compassion, they're sick, they're in a place of weakness, well, sympathize with them with that. So from a place of kindness, compassion, see what you can do for them physically, and then mentally as well. And maybe even do a meditation for this older person, this old sick person, before you've even met them. Do a meditation and send your thoughts of kindness to them. And then when you meet them, put your kindness into what you say, what you do for them, and be very accepting of them in their state, their condition. Say if that person is a mother or a father, their body is dying, sick, it's old, it doesn't look very good, doesn't feel very good. So you sympathize with that, and you do whatever you can to soothe the pain or get them treatment. But that isn't the sum total of that person, is it? That person is old and sick, but they'll have done all kinds of good things throughout their life. And that's something you can acknowledge. If you can talk to them about this stuff, things they've done earlier in their life, things that are interesting to them, stimulate them in a good way, things that you know about, or you could ask them questions to find out more about their life, take an interest in them. You see what you can do to bring up some reflections on other aspects of who they are. They're not just an old sick person lying in bed or whatever. They're a person who's maybe done many, many things in their life. And that's something you can see if you can talk about, acknowledge, get them to think about. Get to know them, be friendly to them. That's Dhamma, being friendly. And then you see from what you know as you get to know them better, what can be useful for them, to what uplifts them, what brightens them. So you have to observe that, don't you, as you talk to them, and see if there's anything that you can bring out by getting to know them. So basically, whatever you can do for them on the physical level and then on the mental level as well.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, my children are adults, but there are always things to do. For example, taking care of the family, paying bills, babysitting, taking care of investments. When we talk about letting go, what do you mean and how do I start? Thank you, Ajahn.
Letting go of the causes of suffering. So pay the bills without attachment. Earn the money without attachment, because attachment leads to suffering. So we're letting go of attachment. So of course we live in the world, we have our duties and responsibilities. Yes, that's what we do as human beings. And if you take on a partner and then you have children, then there'll be more responsibility, more duties, more things that you have to look after. So you have to accept that. But at the same time, introduce the reflections on Dhamma, because you have to look, as you're doing all these duties and responsibilities, what's it doing to your mind? Are you getting more upset, more angry with it all? Are you becoming more greedy? Are you making unwise decisions that lead you into more disappointment and frustration? This is the Dhamma, isn't it? The Dhamma of daily life. You have to look at cause and result, the karma that you're making as you do these things. So letting go is a very simple kind of phrase we probably overuse, but it is also giving you the clue of what you're aiming for. So, you can do a job of work, earn money that will help you to pay the bills. But as you do that job of work, there'll be problems that you have to overcome. You'll feel tired as you do it. You'll encounter all kinds of issues that come up as you're doing that job of work to earn the money to pay the bills. So you have to be ready for that. And that's Dhamma. Letting go maybe is, you accept sometimes you feel tired when you're doing your job of work. Sometimes people treat you well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the job you do goes well, sometimes it doesn't. You come home and you help your family. You've worked all day, maybe now you're going to help your family. Sometimes your family treat you well, sometimes they don't. You have to let go, don't you? Letting go is being mindful in the present moment and then seeing what needs to be done and how to free your mind from suffering in that situation, and see where maybe your attachment is coming up. So maybe somebody in your family doesn't recognize all the sacrifices you're making, and you want them to treat you differently, treat you better, or be more appreciative. Maybe you have to let go of that, because the real suffering is not them. Sure, they could improve or change maybe, but maybe the suffering is you attaching to this desire for someone else to recognize what you're doing and be kind to you and appreciative. And you're not always going to get what you want. So letting go is where there's suffering arising, where there's craving and a clinging coming up in a situation. That's where you have to practice letting go of your craving, your attachment. Because most of the time we're not doing that. We're attaching and then we're reacting to the world. So when things go well, we're happy, we get what we want, we're happy. And when things don't go well, we're unhappy, we're sad or angry. And our mind is flipping around like all the time because we're attaching too much to things. Letting go doesn't mean to say you give up and stop doing things, but you don't cling so tightly that you start to suffer. So it's not easy. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but this is giving you the right view, the right way of thinking. If you're suffering in a situation, you're angry, you're upset, you're sad, you're frustrated because you're not getting what you want, there'll be some attachment there that you have to let go of. So it's a kind of a simple clue. Where am I attaching? What do I have to let go of in this situation? And you have to answer that. The monks, we only give you the general teaching, the general sort of guidelines. Then you have to go away and do your homework and say, well, where am I attaching in this? Maybe I can look at it from a different way, or maybe I need to relax a bit. Maybe I need to accept the way things are. Letting go, we let go in many different ways, but it's coming from wisdom and understanding of the situation and where we're attaching and causing ourselves suffering. So sometimes things happen that is just nothing you can do about. So you just have to accept it. Let go, just accept it, let it be, let it go. Sometimes there are things that we need to do, and letting go can be like, oh, I don't really want to do this, but I have to because it's part of my duty, part of my responsibility. The baby is crying again and I'm tired and I didn't get enough sleep, but I have to get up and feed the baby. That's letting go as well, isn't it? You let go into a duty or responsibility as well. It doesn't just mean not doing anything. It can also mean doing something, but with the attitude of letting go, just giving up to what the situation requires. So there's many things to study and learn here. I can only give you a few pointers, but the simple reflection is, if you're suffering, it's because of attachment. How do I let go of this attachment? How do I adjust my thinking to this attachment so that I'm not suffering anymore?
Next question. Dear Ajahn, is today your birthday? If so, may we wish you many, many happy returns of the day, wishing you longevity to continue teaching Dhamma, a life filled with good health, happiness, abundance, and peace.
Easy question to answer. One word answer. Yes. Yes, it's my birthday. It's also my ordination anniversary because I ordained as a monk on my birthday. So it's double anniversary. So many people, even tonight, through the messages and then throughout the day, have been wishing me well. After 61 years in the world, that's how old I am, I'm still getting my relatives sending recorded messages of them singing happy birthday to me. So just because you become a monk doesn't mean to say they stop singing happy birthday. And then at the monastery this morning, there were people offering very beautifully made cakes. And then they want me to cut the cake and take a photo of me cutting the cake. So that's Buddhist monks' life. We still have birthday cake and people singing happy birthday and people giving me all kinds of messages of well-being. So I appreciate all of that. Everyone is being very kind and very appreciative. So thank you for all the kind messages. My view is, well, as I've been talking about aging, sickness, and death tonight, we're all getting older. Birthday means one bit closer to your grave, one bit further away from your birth. So time is running out. So for me, time is running out. I have to carry on and practice, use this time well. And I would encourage all of you, whether it's my birthday, your birthday, anyone's birthday, every day of the world, every day of the year is somebody's birthday. I would encourage you to keep practicing the Dhamma, because all of us, we're on a limited time. We're not going to be here forever. So keep practicing.
Sadhu, sadhu. Next, we have a live question. So I will ask our questioner to unmute. You may ask your question. Go ahead.
Greetings, Bumpo. Thank you for sharing the Dharma, and happy anniversaries. Talking about aging, I suppose I'm probably closer to 70 than you, but my mother, I think I mentioned it before, is now 100, but her health is going down, very frail, and 30 kilos, and I think we're coming to the stage of, the organs, breaking up. And similar to the question, I think 2 questions ago, except that, the point of communication has now passed. She's not, can't kind of form sentences or communicate that well. I can't even use a phone or other device to spell things out like I used to, because she's not seeing as well either. So it's coming down to this slow decline, and I'm not sure whether it will be days or weeks. But apropos of your talk, there's certainly a learning from that regarding impermanence. But I find, like this afternoon, going in and leaving, although she's not able to say it, one gets a sense after spending an hour and a half or whatever, and then leaving because her tea has come in, her dinner, there's this sense of she's very disappointed that you're leaving, that sort of visual sort of sense, and that pulls on the heartstrings. And even though I'm fairly, inured to the inevitable, so there is an emotional, connection there. In my meditation, I mean, I certainly include her, as I do you and the Sangha, in metta practice, all of that. But how can I sort of deal with that emotional level within, look after myself better, so that I can be more available, to support her at this time? Thank you.
Well, just try to be fully aware of that sadness when you separate. She's displaying her sadness. You probably feel some sadness every time you separate, and just reflect. There'll be that day, the day will come when it will be the last time. That's the first thing. There will definitely be an occasion when you separate for the last time, and you won't see each other again. So get very mindful and familiar with that feeling and accept it. Oh, okay, yeah, separation is like this. Why does it feel sad? Well, because you are attaching, obviously, to your mother, who has great meaning for you, and you've lived together for many years and been in this together for a whole lifetime. So of course you feel like that. So accept it's just a normal feeling. But it's the mind that's not completely happy with the situation, isn't it? Nobody likes separation from what they love and like. That's the reflection. This is how it is. It feels like this. And you just have to accept that and keep teaching yourself to accept that. There's nothing else you can do at this stage. When you're on your own, meditate, obviously, and send your thoughts of kindness to her. And if you can't communicate with her verbally much anymore, well, do it mentally through your meditation, send your thoughts to her, wish her well. And like you say, prepare for the fact that in not very long, there'll be this final separation. But you wish her well. Every day you can wish her well. And your mother is not the body, your mother is the mind of your mother. And, you know, recollect all the good things that she's done with you and other people. And maybe you can still talk to her, even if she can't respond. Perhaps you can still talk about these things to her. I don't know, you know, I haven't been there, but maybe when you're with her, you can talk about things that are very positive and uplifting. You can give it a go. And certainly in your meditation, you can recollect the good qualities of your mother, the sacrifice, the kindness, all the things she's done, and give your anumodana, your appreciation to her for that, and then send your thoughts of kindness to her in your meditation. You do that every day. And accept at some point the body will stop working. She will be gone. You have to accept that. But you wish that in her next life she has a good state of mind, so she goes on to a good place. But also don't, you know, cling on to her too much, because that's going to be another cause of suffering after she's gone. Yeah, just accept once she's gone, she's going to move on, and allow her to move on in your mind. Just say, it's okay for my mum to die, to move on. Don't you know, get caught into that, oh, she's got to stay close to me, I want her close to me sort of way of thinking. Just accept it's her, she's reached the end of her life, she lived a good life. You can think of all the goodness of her life, but now I'll let her move on. So it's try to be as natural as you can as you do that in your mind. Just accept them, that's just the way things are. I will now let her move on.
Thank you. Sorry.
Another question. Namo Buddhaya, Ajahn. How to practice letting go of any attachments with our inner circle, such as family members, good friends, etc., without making them feel as if we are leaving them behind, or making them feel, or making them think we don't love them as much as before.
Well, letting go doesn't mean to say you ignore people or cut yourself off from people. It means you can treat them with kindness and friendliness and genuine well-wishing, but without attachment and clinging. So it should improve your relations if you're practicing letting go in the Buddhist sense. The love of clinging is the love that, you know, you've got to do what I want, and when you don't do what I want, I'm upset. And leads to more suffering for you and for them. The love of non-clinging, non-attachment is, I wish you well, and you can give people support, advice, show them kindness, but you're not one thing is you're not expecting anything back for yourself, because if there's letting go of what is, you're letting go of your own attachment to your own self. So your relationship is going to improve in the sense there's a genuine well-wishing without seeking anything in return. And your well-wishing means, you know, in the Buddhist sense, means you hope this person progresses in their spiritual practice, that they have more sila, more mindfulness, and more understanding of the truth, so that they suffer less. That would be the genuine well-wishing with an attitude of letting go, is you just wish them to be closer to the Dhamma and free from suffering. And you have less and less personal interest, in the sense of less that you expect them to do for you or that you want from them. So it should help your relations. Of course, as you practice the Dhamma, some, you know, things change, don't they? So sometimes friends who are not into the Dhamma, they do drift away, but then you make new friends in the Dhamma. Or family, you know, some family members see that your practice of Dhamma is good, and then some will say, oh, it's a waste of time, and they're not appreciative, and they may be critical of it. You just have to accept that but then you work with your own reactions, don't you? Letting go, maybe letting go of the anger you may feel when your family criticize you or don't appreciate what you're doing, even though you feel you're doing something good. You may have anger, that's what you have to let go of. Or if you have strong love for someone, a strong bond with someone, you also have to let go there, because that strong bond will keep bringing you sadness. You know, you worry about them, you're sad for them. That's not good either, because your mind is in a worse position when you get caught into sadness or worry. So true love, the best kind of love, is, you know, balanced with mindfulness, equanimity, where your wisdom is functioning. That's your goal, and that's what we mean by letting go. It doesn't mean to say giving up or neglecting someone, but it just means adjusting the nature of the relationship, making it better.
Sadhu Lumpur. We still have a few more questions tonight. And the next one goes, Dear Ajahn, how to help or advise an older sibling who is in depression and is breaking the third precept of sexual misconduct?
Well, depends on who it is, of course, the situation. But number one, just try not to break the precepts yourself. So you're being an obvious example, good example to this person if you're seeing them or living with them. Number one, you work with yourself. And number two, you see if you can improve your communication with this person, so you can talk about the issue, which may not be an easy issue to talk about, because it could be very sensitive or embarrassing or awkward for them to talk about. But you just see who it is. You know, it depends on that relationship, how close you are. With depression, you know, I'm not an expert, but often there's things you can do to get them out of themselves doing something good, which may also help get them out of this problem, breaking the third precept. Get them to practice more dana, practice more compassion in daily life, in whatever way you can, because that tends to make us more sensitive. So if someone's breaking the third precept, usually they've got a lot of deception going on, or they're hurting people in their relationships in one way or another. Usually that's the case. So you're trying to get them to open up with kindness to see the harm that they're causing in their actions. Harm for themselves, because they won't feel good about themselves. Harm to others who they're having relationships with, or if they're having multiple relations, then, you know, there'll be a lot of harm going on. Try and get them to see that. Best of all would be get them to meditate, but, you know, that's probably unlikely that they're ready for that. Just guessing here. So if they can't meditate, maybe just try to get them to reflect on cause and effect, on karma and the actions that they're doing and the results of their actions and how it's affecting people around them. Whether you can get them to do that by talking to them, or if you can get them to listen to Dhamma in any way, online or in person, that would be good as well. Get them to do good things, so make offerings or do charity work or anything that they can do that brings some positive input into their life to balance the cravings that lead them to break the third precept and the depression that follows on from that. Depends how much you love this person and how close you are to them. If you're really close, maybe you can help them more. Bit hard to generalize, isn't it? You see everything in the world. You see some people who are just totally obsessed and you can't get through to them, and others you can get through to them. Just see what you can achieve. But number one, you have to do your own practice. That much you know you can do. Practice for yourself. And then as your own practice improves, maybe it will give you some understanding to help that person. You may get some ideas what you need to do, how you can help them effectively.
Sadhu. Another question. Dear Ajahn, I used to try to meditate in the morning, but stopped. Instead, I am now spending time reading suttas and applying Dhamma in daily life. Is meditation necessary?
Well, if at the moment you find it hard to meditate and you're happy reading suttas and reflecting on Dhamma in your daily life, certainly not a bad thing. Maybe just keep it in the back of your mind to, when you're ready, come back to the meditation, because I would say it is a good thing to aspire to. And what we call meditation is developing, particularly improving our level of mindfulness using meditation objects such as the breath or anything else, any of the other one, the regular ones, and then developing insight into the three characteristics. And you'll find that reading the suttas and reflecting on the Dhamma is a very good beginning to the practice. It's giving us an intellectual understanding of the Dhamma. Many people find that very satisfying and inspiring, and that's good. But without the improvement in the level of mindfulness, it can't go in deep. So it may not really affect your citta, your consciousness, that much. It will on the outside level, and that's good. It's certainly not wrong at all. But you also want to start going in deeper. So that's why practicing some mindfulness meditation regularly would be a good thing to aspire to. Maybe just start with very small meditation, 10 minutes a day, and then read a sutta after, or read a sutta and then meditate for 10 minutes. Just see if you can introduce it as part of your routine. That would be my recommendation. And just start with small amounts, and maybe later you'll build it up. The Buddha said there's pariyati, patibati, pativeta. Pariyati is the study, listening and reading the Dhamma. Patibati is putting it into practice. So you need to also make that move into improving mindfulness and then reflecting inwardly on the actual phenomena and experience that are arising in your mind, and body and mind. And pativeta is the liberation that comes from that. So I would still aspire to develop your meditation, but just take it in small bursts to start with.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Ajahn, happy birthday. Many a time we talk about preparing ourselves for death. When my mother, who has since passed on, was falling ill 10 months ago, it occurred to me how I could have prepared her and our loved ones who are not practicing Dhamma as they are aging. Thank you.
It's very common that when someone passes away that we love and are connected to, then we have all the afterwards, all the thoughts, I should have done this, should have done that, could have done this better, etc. Is a very common, isn't it? Sometimes feelings of guilt. We just have to accept we did what we did. And sure, we probably can always do more in a situation, but be happy with whatever good you did do and aspire to do more now in the present moment. This is the way a place of practice is right here, right now. So with your time that you've got left, aspire to practice the Dhamma, keep sila, practice dana, practice meditation, listen to the Dhamma regularly. And like you say, maybe there's still other aging relatives that you're involved with or helping. So just see what you can do for them to bring them into the Dhamma in any way you can, whether it's listening to Dhamma. Often people find that quite interesting because if they've got a lot of time on their hands, not much to do, sometimes listening to Dhamma or reading Dhamma books can help. Obviously, acts of kindness for those people and the elderly. Anything you can do to inspire them towards the Dhamma. Obviously, if someone has a foundation in Dhamma practice from before, then it's easier. But if they're totally new, just see, maybe be creative and see what attracts them. Maybe listening to certain teachers give talks, explanations that can help. or reading a Dhamma book to them can help. Just see what you can do, but with them, you maybe even introduce them to meditation, a loving kindness meditation, and you don't have to use a lot of Buddhist terminology. You just say, we're going to sit and meditate on the breath, or sit and meditate and spread thoughts of loving kindness for 5 or 10 minutes to start with, something very short. You see where you can introduce the Dhamma into their lives in smaller or bigger ways. But as far as what's gone on before, say before your parent died or whatever, you just have to accept that's past. And if there are any lessons to learn that you can learn from it, good, and then try and improve your practice from here onwards.
Sadhu Luang Por. So there's just a few more birthday messages wishing Luang Por good health and happiness. Very kind of everyone. Are there any more questions for tonight? If not, that may be the last question, so we may end it there.
Okay, so very nice to talk to you all, and thank you again for the messages of well-wishing. And anyone else who has a birthday today, may you have a happy, insightful birthday. And anyone with a birthday coming up, which is everyone, because sooner or later everyone's going to have a birthday. I wish you all happy birthday. May you all have lots of mindfulness and insight into the Dhamma. May you all attain Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.